Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So we are just going over a few odds and ends today. Nothing too crazy or shocking, but things I think you guys should be aware of nonetheless. We are due for a ban list any day now, so I feel like for the most part, everyone is waiting for the list to drop, just kind of sitting on their hands. But of course, we still need to pay attention to whatever is happening so that once the list does drop, we can hit the ground running. Let's get started. Alright, so kicking things off, we do have Paleozoic Canadia. So for those of you that aren't aware, the Paleozoic archetype consists of trap monsters. They have simple effects when you activate them as a trap card, and then while they're in the graveyard, you can activate them in response to a trap card being activated on the field to special summon it out as a level 2 aqua water monster. Canadia is one of the better ones, essentially a Book of Moon that can only hit your opponent's monsters. This archetype is pretty old and hasn't seen play in quite a long time. However, the cards are currently trending because of Joshua Schmidt. He's a well-known player and YouTuber from Europe, and I believe he took the deck to a regional and actually did surprisingly well, considering that we are in a tier 0 format right now. A lot of the Paleo cards are actually really cheap. They basically all came out as commons, but some of them did get holo upgrades in OTS tournament packs, and it's a super rare Canadia that has jumped up a little bit in price. Nothing too crazy, but it's gone from being under $1 to now being $2 to $3 a piece. Don't expect anyone else to do well with Paleozoics, at least not this format. Maybe they'll be okay next format after the ban list, but I really do doubt it. Instead, just take advantage of the hype that Josh has created and look to offload your extra copies if you can. Up next, sort of a random one, but we have Skull Guardian. So of course we got a retrain of Skull Guardian with the Voiceless Voice archetype. That Skull Guardian is a really strong one that gets a boost, it's a negate, it also searches a card. This one, however, is just a vanilla ritual monster, so not nearly as useful. However, we just had a new trap card revealed to be coming in the Infinite Forbidden, and it is able to special summon this old Skull Guardian specifically. That trap card does have another effect where you can send it to the graveyard, then target a ritual monster you control and boost its attack points equal to the total original attack of all other monsters on the field. That effect I could actually see being situationally really useful, so maybe since you would already run a copy of that trap, and that trap is searchable, it might be also worth it to run one copy of the original Skull Guardian, which would be a brick but also free value to bring out of that searchable trap card. The unfortunate part is that this original Skull Guardian only has one printing, and it came out back in Tournament Pack 2, so the card is ridiculously hard to find. Technically, the cheapest one available on TCG Player that's near mint right now is $190 at the time I'm making this. However, there aren't any sold listings this high. There's a few lightly played copies that have moved for like 80 to 100. The new trap card isn't coming out for quite a while, so I don't think that you should pick this card up, and actually you should sell it if you just have it and it's just lying around. It's definitely an optional card for Voiceless Voice to play, so you probably don't need to run it. I also feel like this is the sort of card that would get a reprint in a Speed Duel box set. I think other old cards have been reprinted in products like that, or if not, then as an OTS tournament pack common. Up next is a card that I've been keeping my eye on for a little while here. It's Opening of the Spirit Gates. So this is a card that's used alongside Dark Beckoning Beast. Before, this is a card that would be teched into Sprite since it could get you a couple of level 2 monsters onto the field. Recently though, it's been talked about as an option in Yubel and Fiendsmith since you can get 2 Fiend monsters onto the board. It also has another effect where you can discard a card to special summon a Fiend with 0 attack and defense from your graveyard, as well as another one where if you control a level 10 monster, you can add any continuous spell from your graveyard back to your hand. Now, all of these effects actually synergize really well with the Yubel strategy, which is coming out really soon in Legacy of Destruction, and I think players are more hyped for the cards than ever before, with the new Fiendsmith cards set to come out in the Infinite Forbidden, which is the core set afterwards. Because of this, Opening of the Spirit Gates is trending for both versions of the card. It was originally just a common from the Sacred Beast structure deck, and then it got an upgrade as an ultra rare in the 2021 tins. Now, while this card was basically only $1 or so before, either version of the card is now going to cost you a solid $4 each. I think that this is going to be a really important card in the future, and with such limited availability, I would definitely consider picking this card up sooner rather than later. Okay, so this is a super random one. It's Nirvana High Paladin. This is a level 10 synchro monster that requires the non-tuner to be a synchro monster. This card is supposed to be pendulum support, I believe. It is a synchro pendulum, and it has a monster effect and scale effect that involves pendulum monsters as well. However, this card isn't actually being talked about right now because of pendulums, but rather because of Tenpai Dragons. This card has one specific effect where if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can cut your opponent's life points in half. Really simple, but in Tenpai Dragons, where you're trying to end the game as quickly as possible during the battle phase, maybe if your board isn't optimal because your opponent had some sort of interruption, going into Nirvana High Paladin can help you to end the game more easily. This card has just 2 printings. The accessible printing is an ultra rare version from Ghosts from the Past 2. This version is literally only like 25 cents or something. However, its other printing is a secret rare version from the Dark Illusion, a core set that came out quite a few years ago. Now, interestingly enough, this unlimited version of the set was never printed here in the TCG in North America, so any unlimited copy you find is going to be a European version, but either way, a secret copy of the card is going to cost you around $4 to $5 right now. Nothing too crazy, but this card is historically quite cheap. It was one of the worst secret rares to pull in the set. Nothing too insane here, but it's something that you can set aside from your bulk for when people inevitably ask you for the card once Legacy of Destruction does drop. Continuing on with a theme of random cards from random decks, the next card here is Doria Rex Term. So the Doria archetype is really gimmicky, they seem interesting, the whole deck revolves around getting your life points really low without letting them hit 0, but then their cards get crazy effects if your life points are low enough. Of course, with the time rules being what they are, I think Doria isn't really a practical deck to bring to a big event, even though the deck can do some really interesting things. One of those monsters that becomes really scary is Rex Term, a fusion monster that can reduce the attack power of all monsters your opponent controls down to whatever your life points is. This combines well with its continuous effect, where your opponent can't activate the effects of monsters that they control with attack points greater than or equal to your life points. So sort of randomly, Doria I think isn't a bad deck right now. I've seen a couple of lists where the players have topped regionals. All of the stuff seems kind of normal. I didn't think there was anything too crazy about the deck. I guess maybe it's just a meta call by some dedicated players. Rex Term is one of the main cards for the strategy. It has both ultra and secret rare printings, and it was actually just reprinted in the 2023 tins. However, both versions of the card are actually starting to go up in price as the deck has gotten some attention, to where either version is now $3 to $4 a piece, while they were only $1 or so. I don't think that this deck is going to take over the meta or be the next hot thing or anything like that, but it's certainly a fun looking deck to bring to locals that's very different from Snake Eye Fire King. It just might be worth considering picking up a whole core while the cards are still relatively affordable. Alright, if we're talking about random decks, Miror Shield is a card that is currently getting attention because of one of the most random decks we've seen in a while. Last time we talked about Mausoleum of the Emperor and how it's being used in Horus Stun. Well, Miror Shield is a key card in another stun deck. This stun deck uses lower level monsters like Fossil Dyna, Jowgen, and the Barrier statues, and runs a bunch of different floodgates and trap cards as removal. The problem with those lower level monsters is that you can simply normal summon something and beat over them, or you can set an Ash Blossom in defense mode and they can't run over it. However, Miror Shield is the answer to the deck's problems. It makes it so that the equipped monster's stats go up to 100 more than the higher of the attack target's attack or defense stat, so basically your equipped monster is going to win every single battle. It definitely is a key component to helping that stun deck be able to win, but the downside is obviously you're playing an anti-meta stun deck, so you have to draw exactly the right combination of cards in order to do well. Miror Shield doesn't have a holo printing, it has a couple of rare printings from Cross Souls and then the tins from that year, and it was a common in a structure deck as well. However, this is a card that will also attract a lot of new or casual players. If you're a casual player that doesn't really follow the meta and you're just playing with your friends, this card probably seems amazingly broken. Just think of this card with like your elementary school playground mentality, and you can probably see why kids will want a card like this. Because of that, there is more demand for the card than expected, and we actually now have either version of the card up at between $6 to $8 a piece on TCG Player. I wouldn't exactly suggest investing in this, but rather dig this card up out of your bulk and see if you can offload it while people seem to be paying a premium for it. And finally, the last card for us to make a note of is Magis Spectre Unicornkir. So this is something that we looked at a few months ago. I remember a bunch of players thinking that Kirin would be unbanned because of the Magis Spectre support that we got in Phantom Nightmare. Well, it didn't peel off the list back then, and even looking at the most recent OCG ban list, it wasn't unbanned in the OCG either. However, it seems that people are still actively buying the card with hopes that it will be unbanned here in the TCG. Obviously, we don't have any sort of real reason or anything to think that they will unban it now. It's just something that's on a lot of ban list predictions that we see getting posted by all the YouTubers, and I think it wouldn't be a horrible take, right? I think Magis Spectres are pretty outdated, and even though Kieran would probably still be a solid card, it wouldn't be completely game-breaking by any means. This card has 2 rare printings. Either version is going to cost you around $5 right now. I personally really hope that it does get unbanned. I really enjoyed playing Magis Spectre Metal Foe back in the day, and if Unicorn finally does get unbanned, I'll probably jump onto Magis Spectres for a bit because it looks really cool. However, given that the card is still banned in the OCG, don't get your hopes up too high. Maybe pick up a copy or 2 if you can grab it for a few dollars in trades, but other than that, it just might be a safer bet to assume that it's going to stay banned and offload it while people are really getting their hopes up. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. Nothing too crazy to talk about really. There's just a bunch of really interesting small movements to keep us preoccupied while we wait for the list to drop and for a bunch of changes to hopefully happen. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.